The Detroit Lions were cheated again, and the latest bombshell report to drop has the NFL and the referees implicated in what should be investigated for collusion. Now, did the referees go too far, or did the NFL and the refs make the right call? I'm just providing the research. It is your choice to decide. So you let me know in the comments, what do you think happened? And by the way, my name is Will Rock, and you're watching Rockhound Detroit Lions, and we're going to get into all of it right now.
Pressured by Hutchinson, he goes down again.
You all know the drill by now, man. Please help us grow to 11K and hit that subscribe button and share this video if you want the word out about all of the information that I'm about to give you. Some pretty damning information here, some damning statements. What I'm about to share, man, is going to put the NFL on notice, and we need your help to make this go viral. In this video, I'm going to highlight what Dan Campbell said, what Jared Goff said, what he had mentioned post-game, including the referee's pool report and the latest statements by Dan Campbell confirming once again what he said after the game, which I think is the most damning information of all of it. But we're going to get into it. Of course, my investigative findings and all of the research that I do is up for you to decide. So make sure you let us know what you think in the comments below. That is super important to this video. First and foremost, man, let's get it cracking with this.
But I feel like, and this is where have I forgotten something that wasn't even true in my mind?
No,
did they put a rule in place to discourage that gimmick? Because that's what that felt. That's what that seems to be addressing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did I forget about something that wasn't even true? If you get what Mike Florio's saying here, he's like, was there a rule that used to be, but it really wasn't? And maybe it was something, but it was really never true. And that's, the refs and the NFL are just kind of grasping at things, because the Lions are so good at finding the nuances to the rules and just playing with that edge, man, and finding a way to win, finding a way to trick somebody, which is the whole part of the NFL that we all love, man. It's the tricks, right? It's the trick of the trade. So I want to get into the pool report. We're going to start with the crux of the pool report, where I have the most heartburn over this whole entire thing. And quite honestly, I just don't understand how these guys say half the stuff that they do, because it just doesn't add up. It never adds up. So let's just get into it. All right, so here is the first clip of the pool report that I wanted to review, and it starts off with a question by one of the reporters there to Rolstead, who is the head referee of this game. Here's question 1. My understanding is that there was 1 minute and 14 seconds from the time the play ended until when you dropped the flag for the penalty. Can you walk me through what the discussion process was between you and the crew in making that decision? And then referee Rolstead was quoted as saying, "It's my job to see if the quarterback stopped initially. The down judge watches the player in motion. And we had to communicate between him, my umpire, and my line judge whether or not he initially stopped at the quarterback position, and then whether he stopped after he went in motion out of my view toward the left-hand side of the field. There was a little bit of confusion in our discussion whether he had stopped initially or whether he had stopped at the end and what we were talking about. That's why the flag came in so late." This doesn't make any sense to me for a couple of reasons. Number one, Rolstead says that it's his job to see if the quarterback stopped initially. So if it's his job, then why didn't he throw a flag? It's his job. If there was illegal motion on this play, again, for the third time, it's his job to get out the yellow handkerchief and throw it on the turf. He didn't. Why didn't he? We're going to wait and see if Jared scored first, right? That's what we're all thinking. But in here, he says that, he had to confer with the umpire and the line judge whether or not he, being Jared Goff, initially stopped at the quarterback position and then whether he stopped after he went in motion, out of my view, toward the left-hand side of the field, out of his view. So if he's out of your view, how could any of you saw it if all of the other guys were keyed in on something else? Doesn't make any sense, does it? This is just the beginning, right? And I can already tell that people's brains are going to be boiling after this because of how much damning information is contained within all of this context. So now I want to really get into the next part where the confusion really starts to set in, at least for me, right? And I'm not confused at the end of this. I understand what happened here. We got screwed, right? The Lions got screwed. But when a coach is asked a question after a game, I have no reason to believe that coach would ever just make something up or lie about something this important, right? This would be so burned into their brains because it was such a huge moment. So I'm going to roll the clip here of Dan Campbell and what he had said after the game. And again, why would Dan make something up? It wouldn't make any sense to me. Period. Point blank, it wouldn't make any sense. Let's listen to Dan.
What explanation did you get from the refs on the Goff touchdown overturned, and did you agree with the explanation?
It doesn't matter if I agree or disagree. It was.
Did they explain it suitably?
Doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. So I know it came from New York, and they said he never stopped. He stayed in motion. He can't stay in motion. That was that. So that had no bearing on the game. I mean, we lost by 13 points.
Okay. I understand where he's saying, hey, had no bearing on the game. We lost by 13 points. He's being the coach, right? That's what he's going to do. He's going to take that loss. He's going to eat it. He's going to wear it. There's more things that we could have done in this game to win the game. I understand that. Maybe he's trying to toe a little bit of the NFL line here as well and not say something against the refs, which is going to get him in deep shit. I mean, it would. It'd get him some deep, deep trouble. So Dan definitively says that the call came from New York, right? You heard that. I heard that. And what I know about the rules after a touchdown is that no calls for penalties can come from the booth or from New York. It's in the rule book. We're going to go over it, I promise you. The only thing that is happening here after a scoring play is that the scoring play is reviewed to make sure that they actually scored a touchdown, which in fact Jared Goff did. There was nothing sinister going on with the touchdown. He scored a touchdown. He got across the line of scrimmage. He had control of the football. So that's that. It couldn't be any more clear than that, right? So let's go to the pool report again, and let's see where these contradictions really start to come alive with these refs. All right, here's clip 2 from the pool report. This is an extension from the previous clip, and starts again with a question to Rolstead, the referee. Question from the reporter says, what kind of help or assistance, if any, did you have from the replay assistant in Kansas City or from New York? The referee Rolstead stated, quote, we did not have any assistance from Kansas City or New York. The second question said, so that was just a discussion amongst the crew itself? Rolstead responded and said, quote, that's right. Please explain to me, why would Dan just make that up? Why would Dan just totally lie on live TV that he was told by an official that it came from New York? And if he made that mistake, understanding Dan now after almost 5 years of watching him perform, I think Dan would own that, and he would say, hey, I misspoke. I thought it came from New York. It didn't. That's my bad. I don't want to cause any more confusion. That's not what happened. And I had people chomping at my heels the last couple of days saying, man, we can't do this. We can't go on and on and on about the refs in the NFL because Dan said that, but they cleared it up in the pool report, and the ref said he didn't say it. So you're going to believe the ref over your own coach of the team that you watch? Come on, man. Let's be real. You're telling me you don't have any faith in Dan then? All right, so you would expect that Dan would have recanted this story, right? He would have printed a retraction. Let's go to the interview yesterday on 97.1 The Ticket.
I know you said it's a sore subject and you take responsibility for that play not being a legal play, so I don't really want to ask you it again. But I did want to know, after the game, you said it came from New York. Were you told that came down from New York?
Yes.
Dan said yes. Again, Sunday night after the game was the first video that you heard, right? That was the post-game press conference. And then Tuesday morning, on Dan's regular appearance of 97.1 The Ticket, local channel in Detroit, he was asked the question again. And definitively, he gave the same answer, which is yes, it came from New York. That's what he was told. Here's how I'm going to break this down as quickly and conveniently as I can. There's explicit league statement notes within the rule book that says, quote, replay officials may analyze and overturn penalties that they are being asked to look at. They cannot call penalties on their own from the booth. This is different from how things work in the NBA, where replay can now call fouls that were not originally spotted on the court, right, or spotted on the field. In a recent 2025 rule book adoption, Rule 15, Section 9 further elaborated that replay and New York AMGC can, quote, proactively address specific objective rulings, such as confirming or correcting penalty enforcement, but are not empowered to create a new foul after the play based on video when none was flagged in real time. That's the key. There was nothing flagged in real time. There was a conference among all of the referees that, mind you, lost vision of Jared Goff, lost vision of the play, did not know if Jared Goff stopped, didn't not know if Jared Goff lined up in a T formation, didn't know anything. But they went and had a conference about it anyway, and then dropped a flag, right? And then called a penalty for illegal motion. So in that minute and 14 seconds, who was in the ear of the ref? Had to be somebody, because please tell me, like, look, I love to investigate things. This is what I do. I love to find the truth. And I can only report on the things that I find, that I see, and the video evidence that I have. And I believe in Dan, right? I believe that he would never steer us wrong this way. He had an opportunity to recant his story yesterday morning. He didn't. But the reason why this stuff just really starts to burn, and the reason why it doesn't make any sense that the refs would confer about this and then drop a flag, is because this has happened to us multiple times already. And it just seems like the NFL is just overstepping to try to dictate the narrative of the season. I mean, you surely remember week 17 in 2023, right? With the Cowboys, when Brad Allen and that crew just decided to mistakenly identify Dan Skipper as eligible and not Taylor Decker. How about that? How about 2020 versus the Packers? The controversial non-call on the pass interference against the Green Bay Packers, pivotal play. Or even the NFC Championship game in 2023. Yeah, that second half was loaded with defensive issues for the Lions. But man, there was a lot of blown calls, missed calls, and then a preemptive flag for pass interference on Kindle Vildor on that botched 50-yard bomb, that ended up getting caught by Brandon Ayuk. So yeah, a lot of weird stuff, man. And now this Goff TD. So trying to piece all this together, it doesn't make sense that you go and huddle about something that you didn't see. How can you even come to a conclusion that something happened if you didn't see it? Without someone in your ear saying, hey, I watched the video back. This is what I saw. So the video is going to confer that. You can throw a flag. That's me, guessing at what happened. I don't know if that happened for sure, but you would think that would probably be one of the only ways that it went down, right? Let's get into the third clip of the pool report. Things are going to get even juicier. All right, so clip 3 from the pool report. Again, we're going to start with a question from the reporter. Here we go. It says, can you walk me through the play itself and what Jared Goff did to draw the penalty? First quarter, illegal motion foul that negated a touchdown. And then referee Craig Rolstead responded, quote, there were a lot of moving parts on that play. We had a quarterback go up to the line of scrimmage. He paused momentarily in the quarterback position. Didn't get under center, but he walked up and stopped like he was the quarterback. Then he went in motion, and they threw the ball to him for a touchdown. If the quarterback assumes the quarterback position and then goes in motion, he has to then stop for a second before they snap the ball. Because he gets out of the view of some of the officials, we had to piece it together as a crew as to whether he stopped initially and then whether he stopped when he went in motion. It was determined after a lengthy discussion that he stopped at the quarterback position and then went in motion. But when he does that, he has to stop when he goes in motion. A follow-up question by the reporter was this. So, if he had come to a complete stop after going in motion, it would have been a legal play? And Rolstead responded, that's correct. So let me now show you some video imaging, right? Or some images of the game where I think that you're going to be like, wow, man, they really screwed this one up, and they are full of it. So let's get into that. Here's the first image I'm going to show you. Image number one here, one of the first refs that I'm going to point out there, that would be the line judge, right, on the left side of the offense, and there's another exact line judge on the right side of the offense. Man, looks like he's got a pretty good view of Jared Goff, eh? How on earth would Jared Goff get out of the view of a ref that he's running, or an ump, or sideline judge, or line judge, whatever you want to call him, that he's running directly at, and that he's looking directly down the line, and nobody on either team moved other than Jared Goff? How would Jared Goff get out of the view? Come on, NFL. We're smarter than that. All right, let's go to image number two. Who's that guy? Well, that would be, I guess, your back judge, I think is what they're called. And, man, he's looking directly at Goff, too, is he not? You can look at where he's facing. He's looking right at the play. How is it that Jared Goff was able to vanish from both of those guys' view? They didn't see anything happen during this play at all? What were they watching? Who were they watching? Were they looking up at Taylor Swift? I mean, come on, NFL. Do you really think that we are this dumb? All right, let's go to image three. Oh, well, look at there. The guy looking down the line called it a touchdown. So immediately that play is over. Touchdown called on the field, and the only way it could get overturned is if it was actually not a touchdown, and during replay, like every scoring play is replayed, it's reviewed, if they would have found that Jared fumbled, didn't run inbounds, something, right? Well, that didn't happen. It was a touchdown. But look at that side eye that back judge is giving that line judge. He's like, what are you doing, dude? We're about to screw the Lions. Put your hands down. We got to huddle up and talk about this. I mean, come on. Get real. They didn't have any eyes on Jared Goff. Okay, so let's speak to Goff for a moment here and how he handled this, because the rules state, he came up to the line, right? Jared Goff came up to the line, he paused for a moment, and then he went into motion. But the rules kind of give you, the rules do give you the exact definition of what you're supposed to do. But there's like 4 or 5 different subsets and sets to this rule, or rules for this play, that just, they don't all work together. This rule is so archaic, and what they're trying to use here is even if what the Lions did was wrong, the whole point is they screwed the Lions by dropping a flag 1 minute and 14 seconds after the fact. That's what they did, right? They can't do that. It's clear in the rule book that you can't add a penalty if it's coming from New York. You can't. If it came from the ref in the heat of the moment, you dropped the flag as soon as it happened, that's one thing. But to come up with the flag 1.5 minute, 14 seconds later, it's entirely a different thing. So let's go to the rule book here and see what it says about being, okay, what if he was an eligible receiver? Okay, if you're an eligible receiver, all offensive players have been set for at least 1 full second, and an eligible receiver who is on the line of scrimmage moves forward. it is a false start, regardless of whether the action is quick or abrupt or slow and deliberate. If an eligible receiver who is on the line of scrimmage moves backward or changes his stance, 2-point to a 3-point, or conversely, and does not come to a complete stop before the snap, it is a false start. But here's where it gets tricky. Any eligible backfield player who changes his stance does not have to come to a complete stop prior to the snap, as long as his actions are not abrupt, false start, or forward illegal motion. Okay? Again, any eligible backfield player who changes his stance does not have to come to a complete stop prior to the snap. Okay, that's good information to know. What is a T formation quarterback? Let's start there. It is legal for a T formation quarterback to go in motion, whether he has placed his hands under center, on his knees, or on the body of the center. Okay? Jared Goff did not place his hands under center. Jared Goff did not place his hands on his knees. Jared Goff did not place his hands on the body of the center. He tapped the center, but he didn't place his hands, plural, on the center. However, it is a false start if the action is quick and abrupt. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that Jared had to do what? Jared had to pause at the top, he had to pause when he got up to the center. He didn't have a choice but to pause, because if it's quick and abrupt, that's a false start. So if the player fails to come to a complete stop for at least 1 full second prior to the ball being snapped, it is illegal motion. Okay? Well, wasn't Jared stopped for an entire second before the ball was snapped? He was standing there for a couple of seconds, and then he tapped the butt and he took off. So technically, he was stopped. Okay, how about shotgun formation? Because remember this, Jared Goff wasn't the quarterback. David Montgomery was. A player who's in position to receive the snap in shotgun formation is permitted to shift his feet prior to the snap, but any quick or abrupt movement is a false start. This includes thrusting his hands forward when there is not a simultaneous snap. Okay, so we get all that, right? We understand what's going on here. The question is this. When you look at item number 4, which talks about the shotgun formation, which could pertain to this as well. Montgomery was the quarterback in this situation, and any eligible backfield player, which could be Goff, on any play, did not have to stop prior to the snap. But he did anyway. He didn't have to if he was a backfield player, but he did. And according to the rule for a T formation quarterback, it clearly says he can't be quick and abrupt, and if the player fails to come to a complete stop for at least 1 full second prior to the ball being snapped, it's illegal motion. Goff did all that. But then they're trying to say that he needed to stop twice at the top of his route, that he needed to stop as soon as he was in a receiver role. How does that make any sense? But even if that was the case, let's go to what Jared Goff had to say.
What did the officials tell you about the nullified touchdown catch, and were you surprised at all that the call came down?
Yeah, I got to do a little, I guess we all do a little research on what exactly went wrong, because my hands were not under center and I was set to begin the play. And as far as I was concerned, I thought that was the only thing I needed to do. They were saying that, I've never heard this, that I was, because of how close I was to the center, that then declares me as a quarterback, and then I then can't go in motion. I was only under the impression that it was my hands under center. So that's a new version of that rule that I had never heard of, and I think a lot of our coaches had never heard of. And if that is the rule, then I guess we need to do a little bit more research on that.
But just the review coming so late, did they say, you guys are lining up for the extra point, is that New York, or?
I don't know. It's essentially it's an illegal formation that they're calling from the booth, which I've never heard of, but that's not the difference in the game. It was a cool play that would have been fun to score on, and would have been nice to get a touchdown there, but I don't think that by any means would have flipped the game. There was a ton of other plays that they made that we didn't.
All right, so I expect nothing less from Jared Goff than to try to eat it and say that they need to do more research, right? But again, he said, coming from the booth. right? This penalty coming from the booth. He's never heard that. He's never heard that because it's not allowed, right? And exactly what he says is that, he thought that it was putting his hands under center. Well, in the rules, it kind of says that you're set, you're put into a quarterback position. You're making yourself a T quarterback. I mean, that's so old, right? By putting your hands under center or on the center or under the center. If you look at every other play for Jared Goff, when he goes up there to get under center, it's immediate that his hands are going up under center. And then he starts to do his cadence and he starts to read the defenses and everything else. He didn't do any of that. Matter of fact, he's looking at the sideline, and so is Amon-Ra St. Brown. Right? So that they're kind of acting like a play call's coming in from the sideline. And then he turns and he taps the button, he takes off. Let's go to what illegal motion is, according to the rule book, and let's see if we can find anything there. Okay, so here we have the illegal motion straight from the rule book, where it says when the ball is snapped, one player who is lined up in the backfield may be in motion. Remember, one player who is lined up in the backfield may be in motion. That was Jared Goff, provided that he is moving parallel to or away from the line of scrimmage. Jared Goff did that. Jared Goff was the only player in motion, and Jared Goff was running parallel to the line. All other players must be stationary in their positions, and guess what? They were. But according to these refs, remember, there's a lot of moving parts. Nobody moved but Jared. Not one person. If an eligible receiver who is on the line moves to another position on the line, not forward, he must come to a complete stop prior to the snap. Let's read that again. If an eligible receiver who is on the line moves... Let's read that again. If an eligible receiver who is on the line moves to another position on the line, not forward, he must come to a complete stop prior to the snap. If he does not come to a complete stop, it is illegal motion. Okay, so was Jared Goff an eligible receiver? Was he on the line? No, he was not. Jared Goff was in the backfield. An eligible receiver who is on the line moves to another position on the line, not forward. He must come to a complete stop prior to the snap. That is not what Jared did because Jared was not an eligible receiver. He was coming out of the backfield, and only one backfield player can be in motion. As it says right up at the top, one player who is lined up in the backfield may be in motion, provided that he is moving parallel to or away from the line of scrimmage. Does it say anything else in there that player that's in the backfield needs to come to a stop a second time? It doesn't. So it also says it is also illegal formation if a T formation quarterback goes in motion and fails to come to a complete stop for at least 1 full second prior to the snap. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to pin this on Jared of being a T formation quarterback and Jared not being a backfield player. That's what they're trying to do. And in my, I guess, investigative research, I'm 50-50 on it. But I would say this, the flag should have never dropped because they didn't call it on the field. And when you don't call it on the field, it can't come from the booth. And it can't come from New York. They should have verified the touchdown. The ref went like this. It's over. The only thing that they can verify after that point of calling it a touchdown is whether it was a touchdown or not. They couldn't verify illegal formation. They couldn't verify anything, nothing, period, after that play was done. So again, the Lions were screwed. But what they don't tell you, right, what they're going to fail to tell you is that the Chiefs, not one time until late in that game, were called for any penalties at all. And a lot of you know that by now. Why is it that none of the Chiefs were ever flagged? It doesn't make any sense to me. How you could play an entire game the week before and you're flagged, 14 times? And then the very next week, you're flagged no times? How does that make sense? Someone needs to make it make sense because it really doesn't make sense. No team since 1940 has ever gone through an entire game without a flag. And the only reason why they got a flag in the late part of the game is because Chris Jones is offsides. So there was also the penalty not called on this play, which was, again, Chris Jones in the neutral zone, lined up in the neutral zone, and it's not called. Why wasn't it called? Because had it been called, then it wouldn't have gone from 4th and 5, right, to then another penalty coming out on delay a game to 4th and 10. No, it would have been 4th and you're at the line of scrimmage again, which was the old line of scrimmage because those penalties offset. So it would have been like 4th and goal from the half-yard line where they were. And that would have been a manageable down. The Lions would have went for it. They would have got the touchdown. But because they botched this up and screwed it up so bad, we ended up taking another penalty, which made it even worse. Lastly, I'll leave you with this. Dan Campbell is a man amongst men. He always takes everything on the chin for his team. And he always has. So the final video that I'm going to share with you is what he said yesterday about this whole thing and where he's going to leave it.
I know officiating isn't your favorite thing to talk about, but regarding the trick play, you said in the past you've kind of run over those plays with the officials beforehand. Mm-hmm. At any point during that process, were you given assurance that the way you ran it was a legal play?
Yeah, I don't even want to talk about it. I don't. And I'm sorry, Jeremy. It's just, it's a real sore spot. And it's, I told the team, I take full responsibility for that. I do. You know, and players did exactly what we told them to do. Goff did exactly what we told them to do. David did, and I will take that. You got to make it very clear on where you are. And I did not do that. And I told them I take responsibility for that.
How about the penalty differential? Just in general, they didn't have many on either way, but they weren't called for any penalties. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't.
Dan is the ultimate pro, man. He's going to take it on the chin. You know, you could say that maybe he's trying to toe the NFL line a little bit. But, you know, at the end of the day, I think he just wants his team to be treated fairly. Right? I think he just wants a good, clean, old school kind of football game. And they're not getting it. You know, for the most part, the Lions have turned the NFL upside down. A team that's coming in and banking 35, 40 points on average per game, destroying teams left and right, trick plays up the wazoo, bending every rule in the playbook to work in your advantage. And it's all done legally, but the NFL can't stand it. And they definitely couldn't stand the Lions coming in on Sunday Night Football and embarrassing the Chiefs, marching down the field, taking, 8-9 minutes off the board and scoring a touchdown on a trick play. They weren't going to stand for that. And so again, I'm going to ask you, what do you think happened here? Did the NFL go too far? Did they get the call right? Or did they get the call way wrong once again? I think that there's collusion here, and I think that the NFL should be investigated. And, you know, again, it's all based on the evidence that I've provided. I'm leaving it up to you to decide. Somebody needs to investigate, but the best way to get things investigated is for you guys to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and definitely share this with a friend, man. Put it out there on your socials. I know it's a little bit of a long video, but hey, it's what it takes to tell the truth. Dan Campbell, definitive in his answer, said this.
I know you said it's a sore subject and you take responsibility for that play not being a legal play, so I don't really want to ask you it again. But I did want to know, after the game, you said it came from New York. Were you told that came down from New York?
Yes.
Pressured by Hutchinson, he goes down